thank you all for coming. We really appreciate your time. We know it's a beautiful fall evening, but we're hopeful that the information we share with you tonight will be helpful. We've got about an hour or so planned to just give you some overview information. We've had some shifts and changes in the department here over this summer and into the beginning of the school year, so we wanted to share some of that information with you. My name is Kim Marani. My name was Kim Brown. That's what you probably have heard and read for many years. I did get married over the summer, but you can call me, thank you, whatever name you want. You know, once you change, you know, your social security number, then everything kind of flows through. So,
Yeah.
Either way, that's myself. I'm the director of special ed here. For those of you I haven't met, this is the beginning of my 6th year in this position. I was a coordinator, a secondary coordinator for 8 years prior. Previously to that, from 1990 up until that time, I spent all of my years at the United Methodist Children's Home, 14 years in the classroom, 6 years as the principal there, during which time I also did some coordinators work and supervisors work around the district. So I've been here in and around in some capacity since 1990. Needless to say, many, many changes, obviously, as things have gone through the years. And of course, we're coming out of, you know, the last 18 months with probably the most unpredicted changes any of us ever could have lived through. So we're glad to have this opportunity to share with you tonight. So like I said, we're just going to do basically an overview of our district. Not very good at that. And the programming. If any of you saw or came to or bother looking at, oh, do I need to go up here?
You're fine.
We are recording this. We're not live stream, but we're recording this for those parents who can't be here. So I'm going to try to stay in this local area here. But this summer we had a presentation that we did to the Board of Education that probably did a lot more in-depth in terms of district programming, structures, and all of that than we're going to do this evening. So you can always go back and refer to that. If we have time in the end, if you have general questions about programming, we can certainly address those tonight as well. But before we have our coordinators introduce themselves and talk about what they do in terms of supporting the schools, your children, your teams in your buildings, this is just a list of all the special ed staff throughout the district. Sometimes it's hard to really compensate how many people work. We're a pretty big district, but if you look, when we say general intervention specialists, those are your IS that are in your buildings that do not work in one of our district programs. So they're not in the Behavior Learning Center or the Structured Communication or Daily Living Skills or preschool, right? These are just the general, I call them general intervention specialists. We have 31 district program intervention specialists, and those are those specialized programs that we have placed throughout the district for our students that have different needs, right? We have 17 intervention specialists that are at the preschool, and we'll talk a little bit about Sutter Park. Renee will with you. I know one mom just said, like, it's just an amazing place if you haven't been there. We have 2 intervention specialist consultants. That position is a little bit different. It's actually what Jake has come to us from. So you think of them primarily as working at the high school. So when you look at that spectrum of services for students, a consultant position is an IS that works with students who really don't need any type of direct or even that support. They don't need to meet with someone every day. They just need someone to touch base with them, check on things. A lot of times, as we're transitioning students through middle school and high school, preparing them for whatever their post-high school plans are, if they're planning to go to college or even into the workforce, we want to try to wean them off of that maybe daily support that they're not going to have in their next environment. It's a nice, safe place for us to provide a level of service to a student where they still have access to supports, but they can try to, try it on their own a little bit more. So someone's still staying in touch with them. You still get progress reports. There's still an IEP. You still have all the same rights and meetings that you have. It's just a lower level of service. So we have one ISC, I call my ISC, that works based out of Thomas and those feeder patterns, and then one out of Kilbourne and those feeder patterns. We do have elementary and middle school students that are on consultant services as well. It's just predominantly more students at the high school. We have a .5 scholarship facilitator. So the John Peterson and Autism Scholarship are two options that families have in terms of funding to choose other programming for their children. We as a district are still responsible for all of their paperwork. So say Hogland is one that's local here for us, that a lot of families choose to take the scholarship and have their children serviced at Hogland. So they give us information on how the students are doing. We have an intervention specialist in this building that writes the paperwork, holds the meetings, so we're staying and making sure that we're staying in compliance with the obligations under FAPE for that child. We have one parent mentor who we just now have a new parent mentor, and we'll show you her information tonight. She's starting with us within the week. We're excited about her. One job training consultant, 3.5 job coaches. We have 2 special ed literacy coaches. A lot of you probably have met or know Allison Palermo. She's been around the longest. We also have Kendra Prendle now. Allison works primarily with elementary and Kendra does middle and high. And then for our related staff, we have 12 school psychologists, 13 speech pathologists, 8.2 occupational therapists. I know today we're doing this, I'm like, how did we get a 0.2? But we have some OTs that are part-time, and so it just adds up to 8 full-time, 8.2 FTE, 1.6 physical therapist, 1 adaptive PE teacher, and then 3 administrative assistants that work in this office to manage all of that paperwork that comes through, as you can imagine, within the district. Any questions about just the general staff overview? Yes.
What's the difference between the job training consultant and the job coaches?
Yeah, so the job training consultant is kind of oversees the program. She's an intervention specialist. And then the job coaches go out on work sites and job locations and actually coach skills with the students. So they are classified employees that work throughout the both high school buildings. But say they will go to, we have a site at Worthing Way, we have other locations throughout the community. So when the students are on a job site or even working for paid employment, they make that connection with them. Any other questions about any of these positions? All right, so I'm going to introduce to you first. We'll go through our 3 coordinators, and Beth's going to jump in first.
Good evening. I am Beth Raina Williams. I am a special ed coordinator, and I'm actually transitioning from being the secondary special ed coordinator to supporting the elementary and middle schools that are in the Worthington-Kilbourne High School feeder pattern. So my buildings will now be Brookside, Bluffsview, Liberty, Worthington Hills, Granby Slate, and then Perry Middle School, McCord Middle School, and the Academy in Rockbridge, mainly because that's just all on one campus. And then I also supervise and meet regularly with our school psychologists and physical therapists. And some of the job responsibilities for me, and actually Renee and I will kind of mirror each other, so I'm going to share a few of the things that we do, and then she's going to share some. But we attend IEP meetings with all of our new ISs, and then any other IEP meetings that we are requested to attend, especially if staff are needing help like problem solving or to talk about services, then we try to attend as many of those meetings as we possibly can. We also meet regularly with IS and building administration just to talk about services, caseloads, problem solve with the buildings, just support the programming in each of those buildings. We also attend meetings for students who may be attending some programming that's out of district. We attend all of those meetings with those families and students as well. And then we also do transition meetings. So transitioning our kiddos when they're going like from middle school to high school, we participate in that process as well.
Yeah, no, it's the clicking thing, that
click,
mouse,
right.
just roll it.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
Not just an actual click.
The top, right.
Oh, up here? Sorry. Oh, no. Jacob Mike, yep.
Hi, I'm Renee Brinson, and like Beth said, we're kind of doing some transitioning now that Jake has joined our team. I used to do the work with the preschool, all of the elementary buildings, and now I'm transitioning to the Thomas Worthington feeder pattern. So I'll have Worthingway and Kilbourne that feed into Thomas Worthington, and then work with Colonial Hills and Evening Street that feed into KMS, and then Worthington Estates, Wilson Hill and Worthington Park that feed into Worthingway. Then I'll still continue to work with Sutter Park Preschool, and then I also supervise the speech pathologist and the occupational therapist, and adaptive PE actually, which I should probably add on there. And that involves, doing observations, helping them problem solve when they're trying to provide services to students, professional learning activities if they need to develop a certain skill, because sometimes we get students in the district who may have a different need than we've seen before. So then that, I help them access those, that coursework or professional learning that they might need to address a student's needs. In addition to that, I work with parents who are considering the John Peterson or Autism Scholarship. So that is an option for all of our students in the state of Ohio. If you have an IEP, that you can access that if you want to look for programs outside of a public school building. So sometimes parents have a lot of questions about how do you do that, and what does that mean, and what do we provide once they go to those programs. And like Kim said, we do still oftentimes do the ETR, kind of depends on the program where they are, but we do always provide the IEP and do all of the paperwork pieces for that. And then work with ODE to make sure all those documents are uploaded into the state system. We attend ETR meetings, depending on what's going on with the student, if it's lots of people involved or something. A lot of times we will engage in those ETR meetings. We work with a lot of IEP teams when we have students who have complex needs and we're trying to figure out or make recommendations, should they receive their services in the building? Should they receive services in a district program? Should they receive services maybe in a program outside of our district? And so when we have those kinds of meetings, we attend those. We might arrange tours for parents in out-of-district locations so that they can see what the options are for their students, and work with those programs to let them know what our student needs are so that they can let us know if they can provide those services to our students. Then I also do a lot of work with the preschool. So the preschool administrator, Trisha Winland, she's been there now for several years and has done a great job. We have peers in our preschool program as well as special education students there. I don't even know, we have probably a couple hundred kids there. We have a large preschool, special needs preschool program, and everyone seems to love it. We have lots of early childhood intervention specialists and paras and all the related service staff. One of the big things I work with Trisha on is the transition from preschool to kindergarten, which is a really big deal when your kid is turning 5 or 6 and now it's time to go to kindergarten. We hold a transition night, usually in December, where parents can come and ask questions, and we can tell them what services are going to look like, which may look a little different than they do in the preschool setting. And then they're able to ask questions, and we can answer those, and people usually stay after, and try to get some specific information about their student. And then, the process is already started. Kindergarten registration for next fall, I think it opens November 1st. So it's just around the corner. So we're already starting to have conversations with parents at parent-teacher conferences that just happened at the preschool about your child is eligible. They're going to, turn 5. So do you want them, start thinking about, do you want them to stay in preschool another year, or do you want them to go to kindergarten? And then we'll have that conversation, transition night in December, and then in January, February, when we have conferences again, we'll start talking to parents again about, what are your decisions, so that we can start looking at all of our district elementary schools and seeing like how many kids will we have, going into kindergarten in each of those buildings, and starting to prepare staff and teams for the students that they're going to get in the fall. And it's a big transition for parents, so sometimes we're doing tours of kindergarten classrooms or tours of district programs so that people feel very comfortable about their student transitioning. We also do, usually February, March-ish, elementary to middle school transition meetings. So the intervention specialists in the elementary, who have now 5th graders that are going to be going to the middle school for 6th grade, they meet with those middle school elementary specialists and start talking about, you're going to be receiving, this student who needs reading, and you're going to receive this student who has reading and math, and then any special things, if there are medical concerns or things that they need to be aware of, so that we can really prepare for those kids arriving in that next building. Does anyone have any questions about any of that?
Just a quick question on the last piece. When you begin transitioning the middle school or elementary to middle school, and you're talking about sort of those communications, is that mostly school to school with administration then as well, or does that include parents? I wasn't quite sure.
Yes, both really. So sometimes it's just, sometimes we have an elementary IS who might have 15 5th graders, on his or her caseload, and then they'll go through all of those kids. And then out of those kids, sometimes there are kids that we know we need to pull the family in because of the needs of the student, to make sure that everyone is aware of whatever those needs are. So it really depends on the student, the situation, and the parents. But yeah, sometimes the parents are involved in, an IEP transition meeting in the spring.
Okay.
So I can agree. I'm just going to share a little bit more in reference to that question. I'm working right now with the 4 middle school principals to gather information on what the transition process is for all students, right? When they leave an elementary and go to a middle. Especially coming off of these last couple of years, and now with their 6th graders already at the middle school, it may look a little bit differently, just like the middle school to high school at Kilburn and Thomas may look a little bit differently. So I'm gathering information currently on that piece, and then we're going to work together within our department to come up with what we need to do in addition across the district. That was one of my goals we're working on this year, to make sure that we streamline that so that it's consistent for all students, special ed students anyway, like especially for those needs, and there will be a parent component to that. So by the time your students start that process in the 2nd semester, we'll have, I don't know exactly if it's going to look like a handbook or a resource guide, something for you as a parent that will help with not only the process, but some of the language and what do they call it here versus, at elementary, they don't call them learning centers, especially like they do at the high school, or they call them academic prep in the middle schools. So we'll try to lay a lot of that out in a document for families, so that will help with that coming up.
That's great to hear. Just one little shameless plug for parent involvement. Sometimes ISs have a different understanding
Right.
and a different language about a child, and
Right.
so just the ability for a parent to say, hey, things are on track, we love the handbook, sounds
Right.
like everything's smooth, or an opportunity to say, I'm noticing that, like, it just seems like a potential checkpoint.
Right,
Opportunity.
right. And it's something that we can take some of that off the plate of the ISs, right?
Yeah.
So while they're working with your students, and we can manage some of that across the district. So hopefully that will be a little more structured for you this year. Oh, yeah, I just did the same thing. Pushing
Good evening. My name is Jake Guthrie. This is my 11th year in the school district. I've served a variety of roles within the district, but I'm coming new as a coordinator this year from being an intervention specialist consultant for the last 7 years. And prior to that, I was a building IS at Thomas Worthington primarily, but I've also taught direct classes at Worthing Way. I've been in inclusion classes throughout the high schools, and I've taught direct reading as well. When I first came after grad school, direct reading was the big piece that I came here initially. So I'm also Wilson certified. As the the intervention specialist consultant, I've also served as assistive technology specialist. So one of the programs that I've helped pilot and spearhead is Read and Write for Google Chrome. So if you've heard of that resource, that's available to all students in the district. That's one of the tools that I've helped spearhead in the district to give students access to digital tools throughout the websites.
Could you say that again? You said that really fast.
Which part?
The tool name, you said
Read and
that-
Write for Google Chrome.
Reading right. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll show you a link because I'm going to talk about the website after Kim's going to go through another part. But I'll show you where you can find it on the website, and it'll give you some links to be able to learn a little bit more about it. So yeah, this is my first year serving as a coordinator, but I will be serving the high schools, both Thomas Worthington, Worthington Kilbourne, Linworth Alternative, and also DACC and the transition program. So that's working closely with the job training consultant and the job coaches for the transition piece as well. So a lot of the similar roles that I serve with Beth and Renee as far as IEPs, involvement with the ETR. Fortunately, because of my involvement with the school district, both as a teacher and I've been a basketball coach at Thomas Worthington for the last 10 years, I have pretty good relationships with all the admins already, so it's a very easy transition for me to be able to move into this role, just knowing all the building principals, knowing the deans, the school counselors, just all the different people that involve a school team to help a child learn and be supported. I have already good relationships with all the different schools, so that makes it an easy transition for me, and I already have worked closely with Jill Zurine, the job training consultant as well. So those relationships are very helpful for me to just kind of jump right in and go immediately into the new role to add the support team here at the board office. Just a few things that I'm going to talk about it in the website and show you guys how to navigate some of the different tools and resources just so you know where things are. But with the transition programming, there's coming up November 2nd, there's a staff professional development. We're going to be doing some staff PD on the different transition programs and just enhancing what all the ISs already know about the programs. And I'll show you again on the website some of the resources that are available and hope to give you more information about some of the things that students can be doing while they're going through the different levels of the program, and maybe some things that are also available to afterwards. So we're making sure we're sending kids and setting them up to be successful after high school. So any questions specifically? I know you guys want to get excited about things. I start talking fast, so I'm glad you told me to pump the brakes. All right, thank you.
All right, so before we start the navigation through the website, I have recreated this. I know you can't read that. That's why we make fun. I can't even hardly read this. Glasses come on my face. So we created this just called Who to Contact for Special Ed Assistance. Now, by no means is this going to cover everything, question, concern that you may have, inquiry during the time that your child is receiving services through the district. But we tried to hit some of the main points. So if you have concerns with homework, classwork, assignments, tests, projects, accommodations, modifications, the first person would be your child's intervention specialist. If concerns continue, then they always go from that direct person to your building principal. If you still have concerns after working through your building, then this will direct you to these 3 coordinators, and it lists on here the buildings that they are coordinated with, just in case you leave and forget who's who, or who you have as your person, or as your children actually progress through the schools, they'll have different people possibly when they get to the high school. So you would contact Jake, Renee, or Beth, and then obviously you don't have to wait and call me then. You can call me anytime, but that's just that normal chain of command. Same thing, obviously social emotional issues are significant with some of our students, and peer interactions, just anything that's going on socially with your child. It has contact school counselor and mental health specialist. Now you will notice that we did not list the mental health specialist on our list of staff. They officially belong to the district. I'd like to claim all of them just for us, but they're on our academic achievement page as a mental health team because that service is available to all students, right? So it's not just students on IEPs. They are, however, on Section 7 or on the service page of some students. So in that case, if that's going on, and I mean, you can obviously speak to your IS as well, but if they have a mental health specialist on their IEP, certainly you could speak with them first or check with the school counselor. And if you feel there is a need or your child is struggling in a way that you think that service may be supported to them, that would be the first place to start, would be that school counselor. Paperwork-wise, in terms of IEPs, evals, and 504s, it says school counselor or school psychologist. The IEP questions, depending on what they are, you could also obviously go to your intervention specialist. The school psychs obviously do the evaluations along with speech, if it's a speech disability student as well. Anything related to speech, OT, APE, PT, obviously start with that therapist and then work through that if you need. Any questions about this? Yep.
So that the top box where it says concerns with assignments, and your child is on a 504 plan and doesn't have an intervention specialist, who do they contact?
So you would talk to the gen ed teacher or the school counselor probably.
Talk to the first part one again.
General education teacher. If there's like you're in secondary, so you probably start with the school counselor. If it's an elementary student, you would start with your classroom teacher. I could add that box on here. That's a good point. Thanks for that feedback.
I had a question about then is the third box down, is that where parents who are new to all of this would start then?
So, you mean if their child is not identified as special ed?
Correct.
So there would be, if you had concerns on your child's performance or accessing their education, you would start as an elementary with the classroom teacher. And then there's a process that they would bring to the team called multi-tiered systems of support. I always want to say multi-systems. And then they would work with the family and navigate through the process in terms of looking at if there are interventions needed for the student to be successful. So that initial contact would go to your classroom teacher.
To that point, we're coming from an outside program and we'll be transitioning into elementary school. So who would we contact to start?
So
that up?
I think I heard you, if you're coming from an outside of the district program and into, so are you just enrolling back in?
Yeah, well, she's just ending preschool at Nisong and we'll be going to
Oh,
Mills.
coming in. Okay, so you would, at that point, you could contact do you know which building, like feeder pattern wise, right?
Yeah.
So you could contact your coordinator at that point. They could help you navigate that enrollment process. Yeah. And if you ever have a question and you're just not sure, just call the main office upstairs and ask for me or any of the coordinators. I mean, we can always, quite frankly, even the secretaries, the administrative assistants upstairs, they know a lot too. They can always answer a lot of questions or certainly get you to where you need to be. Any other questions on those in general? Okay. Well, Jake is going to start the navigation through the district website. So as I've had conversations in groups or with individual parents, sometimes it's like, well, it's on the website. And they're like, well, I tried to find it and I couldn't, right? So obviously with big, large district websites, they do get very involved and there's a lot of information on there that sometimes is hidden away to someone who didn't put it there, but not intentionally. So we thought it might be a good use of time, and we'll talk about a few things as we go through this. And please feel completely comfortable, especially in this small group. As he's navigating these sections, raise your hand if you have a question. Don't have to wait until the end because there's a lot on there. You might forget at that point, but please go ahead and raise your hands. And then I put index cards on your tables. So I was hoping, like, during the process of the website, if you have an idea or suggestion, and maybe Kelly even put, or the 504 question, like for the chart, any suggestions to write on one side of that card for us, and then on the back, I'm going to ask you at the end about ideas for future meetings. So as we navigate this website, if you can think of things you'd like to see that aren't there, please feel free to jot that down. And if you have any comments or clarification questions while we're going through, please stop us, and we'll certainly answer those as we work through it.
Okay, so I think the key thing before I get too deep into the website is to make sure that you all understand that I understand from a parent perspective that there's a lot of information that you're trying to take in, and a lot of times there's a lot of acronyms thrown out, and a lot of just that we as professionals sometimes maybe just assume that people understand the lingo that we're talking about. So I don't think you can ever ask too many questions. I feel like that good questions help guide our practice and be able to know especially what you're looking for, and especially from this standpoint from the website, the more that we know and understand that you like need, the better it's going to help us be able to put things together. We can put infographics together, different worksheets, different things that can help explain and help you navigate. Also, at the same time, if you feel like you don't know what you don't know, go back to that same graphic that Kim was just talking about, and start with intervention specialists. And if they don't know the answer, then they'll pass it down the chain, and that's because that's what we're here for as well. So sometimes you're not even sure what questions to ask. You're just a little bit unsure. Please reach out, because that's what we're here for. Like, that's why we all got into the field that we're in, is we want to help and support. So don't ever feel like you can't ask a question or you're not sure. It's better off to do that than feel like you're in the dark on anything, because I know that there's a lot out here. Just from my perspective of being in the high schools and being in the district and being in multiple buildings, when you start throwing in the classes that you have to think about, and then all the different activities that they're involved with, and then you add on all the extracurriculars and all those things, there's a lot. And that's why the website, we've done a great job. Don Taylor came into the district, I'm not sure how many years ago, and he's done a nice job of really bringing life into the website. But it can always be better, so feedback is definitely encouraged. So the first thing I'd like to say, because I use this tool all the time for the website, is the search bar.
That's
So
what I found
just
out
going
which
up
one
here
that section was.
and typing in, if you know like grad requirements, or you know it's something about related to curriculum, go use the search bar first, because it will actually it does a nice job of bringing things up that are most relevant, and can guide you to where you need to be going, especially if you can't find it, because there are a lot of different things on this website. To get to the special education page, you want to start at academics, and then under academics, you're going to go and click on this tab, which is going to take you to just the general academics page. This includes different resources related to testing, curriculum, specifics on curriculum. So I know I'm involved with the curriculum the liaison team that meets once or twice a quarter, I think, 3 or 4 times a year maybe. And there was a question that's brought up, is I have no idea how to help my child with their math because I don't understand the curriculum that's in 3rd and 4th grade. Well, there's a lot of information on here about curriculum too, and we have people that are experts in that area as well. So, and they love to talk about curriculum, let me tell you. So if you have questions, there are people that would love to share more about the different areas of the curriculum at different grade levels. But as you work your way down here, you'll see special education under student supports. So at the home page, you can see our meeting for tonight. And then there's a quick video that is, I think this was last year with Kim.
So last summer, we presented at the board meeting in June, and then right after that, we did just a real quick snippet summary of like 3 or 4 of the top slides that we shared during that presentation. So this is just like a 2-minute video summary of that. It describes district programs and transit or feeder patterns and that sort.
And again, with different programs, this is the field that we work in, so we understand it. So if you watch a video and you see all these acronyms of SELC and SLC, and ask questions. That's the best way to start understanding more and more. Also, so if you go this who to contact, this is that sheet that was shared. Kim was talking about. And then department directory. So if you can't remember who to speak with, when you go to the department directory, if you click on the names, so if you click on Renee, it's going to give you a drop down, give a little background on her, and then also the responsibilities. So if you can't remember, if you go to the special ed homepage, it'll give you that reminder as well, and it does that for all the different members of the department. So within the homepage on the left-hand side is where all the different tabs are included. The first tab, Ohio Guide to Parents' Rights in Education, if you click on that, that's going to take you to the procedural safeguards page and give you all the different languages for the procedural safeguards that are offered to you after any type of IEP meeting. So that's going to describe all your different rights as a parent and the different laws to protect students under any type of disability. So we have those in multiple languages, as you can see. Within that left side as well, there's hyperlinks to the ODE website. So obviously everything that we do, we report to the ODE. So special education info. This is the general special education page at the Ohio Department of Education's website. And this can take you to a lot of different directions. So I won't go too deep into this unless you have specific questions. Yes.
Sorry, really quickly on this, because I was trying to track down some information recently. Is there like a person at ODE that might respond with questions?
They're kind of assigned by topic.
By topic,
So
okay.
if you emailed one of us or gave us something that we could probably lead you in the right direction. Sometimes you can call that main number and leave a voicemail. They honestly aren't too bad about getting back to you or
Interesting,
even
okay.
emailing.
I tried the email. I
And
haven't
you
heard
didn't
back
get a
yet.
response?
Yeah. I just wondered if there was like, with, sometimes some of the state agencies have regions and they have
Yeah,
contact
so
people for them. I didn't know.
The state support team, which is the ESC Educational
Yeah.
Service Center, have you been to that website?
I haven't been there lately.
Okay, so they have coordinators that work, they're kind of like the in-between steps. So there's ODE, then the ESC coordinators, and like that would sometimes be our first contact. They provide a lot of the trainings and stuff to all of the districts. So they sometimes, if you are having difficulty, you can always call out to the
Right.
Educational Service
I'll do
Center.
that. Thank you.
So going back, hyperlinked about state test accessibility, extended learning standards, child find, that's all through Ohio Department of Education. So again, if you're looking for something specific there and you don't know the answers, that would be something you could go to the coordinators as well. We can direct you in the right path, or we might have the answers ourselves. Moving down, Special Education Board of Education presentation. So there are a few different links here. And so you can
That's
see
the
this was a
summer.
presentation from this summer. So this will take you through, and this goes way deeper into a lot of the areas that Kim was introducing at the very beginning. So if you're interested in that, that's up at the site.
Yes?
Yes?
I don't know if that's the chart. You go back to that one.
Yeah,
sorry.
sure. Oh, no, sorry.
The presentation,
Yeah.
I think you're right, yeah.
So where it talks about how many intervention specialists there are, and it goes down.
Okay.
Down. Right.
Right here?
No, it was 130. So there's 113. Wow. Okay. That I was just you had that breakdown at the beginning.
Yeah, it
so
was
that
broken
includes
down
all
into
of
the
those
different
together.
classes,
Okay.
right, yeah.
Sorry, it was
Yeah.
just clarification.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And anytime we do presentations and different events, we're gonna post things on the website. So if you can't make it, like we're gonna post this video, so people that weren't able to make it tonight will be able to see it. Anytime we do any type of activity, if we do transition-related programs, we'll try to have as much information that you can still gather if you're not able to attend. And then on this left side here, under special education, the determination process, disability categories, and continuing services, those are just information, kind of our philosophy, and it just breaks down a little bit of the process that we would go through. Obviously, those are pretty in-depth, long processes, but this gives you an initial summary. So especially when some of that language is being used in different meetings, you can do some research and also understand the process that we go through in order to determine the needs for different students.
Jake, your voice is
individually.
trailing a little bit.
Sorry?
Your voice is trailing.
Sorry, thank you. Sorry.
These masks are hard.
Yeah, the masks make it a little bit difficult.
You get the face shield so you
But
can-
the processes that we go through to determine the needs of the students, we break down in these different areas. And then obviously, when there is a identification, there's disability categories that breaks down to as well. And that's where anything related to disability categorizations or identifications or testing or anything like that, that would be school psychs. And so that would be where Beth is the coordinator overseeing the school psych. So if the school psych isn't able to answer your question, you'd seek out Beth and ask questions from that end as well.
So that'll go through, there are 13, and scroll down, are they,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay,
Which one was it?
disability categories. Yeah, so those are the 13 categories that a child qualifies under. DD is on there, that is preschool only, and oftentimes now you'll see preschoolers actually identified under one of the school age categories, but IDEA, those are the categories. So when you have that planning meeting with your school psych and there's a suspected disability, they'll list what category they're assessing for. That's what those are.
Is there a hyperlink here somewhere for, again, thinking about a new parent who, I'm gonna go out to the website, try to track down this information, and I think I need a determination process just because those words sound like they would, they're pretty self-explanatory, I should say.
Right.
Is there a way to put a hyperlink in there? I'm thinking not only maybe to something like this, but a list of school psychologists. I know when I started down this road years ago, I didn't even know there was a school psychologist.
Right.
And so I'm just trying to think from that lens of a parent who has never ever done this and is completely, potentially overwhelmed.
Right. So, absolutely. So we have, and we can get something we have, it changes obviously every year and sometimes in the middle even, but we have a building by building special ed staff that are in each building. And it covers related IS, psychs, mental health, like that team that's available by name. So we can update that. Also, when we get to our parent mentor section, there's a picture of her on here and what she gave us in terms of her introduction. And she is, by far, will be the best place for the first. And they hand out flyers for the parent mentor at those MTSS meetings. They're always in the office staff, school counselors. They're all made aware. Now, like I said, she's coming on new, so she'll have to spend some time these first couple weeks getting out in the building, getting people familiar with her face. But her information's on here as well. So she's always, because that is the main job of the parent mentor, is to help navigate, right? And listen and reassure and kind of work through the process with families. So she'll be huge in that as well.
Great, so maybe a link to her.
I'm sorry?
Maybe a link to her.
Yeah, she's on here.
Yeah,
We just,
okay.
she's down a little ways.
So that is my question is why, if she's such a resource, I don't know, just visually as I'm looking at the side,
So maybe move
maybe
her up.
moving
Okay.
her up, or I don't know if there's a way to determine, this is where I'm not technologically savvy, is what gets clicked the most? Does your
To see where the
teaching
search
click the
boxes
most,
and
or,
what's there.
kind of order it that way, because
Okay.
if people are really looking for the parent mentor the most, having her so far down, maybe
Well,
they get lost.
And in looking at this too, I was disturbed that we had to get through 3 clicks to find
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I didn't know
And
where
when
to go.
I used to look at the search bar, in searching special education, you put that in there and there's a lot that comes up.
yeah.
Right.
And it is not directed to what I actually was looking for, so it did take me. And sometimes it would take me to antiquated old information. I know we talked about this over the summer, and I'm sure you guys are updating all of that.
Right.
But the thing that I would personally say is I would have searched under parent resources first.
Yes.
I would have never in my mind gone to academics
Me neither.
for a resource for special ed that I needed. And
So maybe looking for a button on the homepage
yeah,
rather than
and
navigating
or
through.
a double, you know, in
Right.
a couple different, you know, we can web this together where we
Okay.
can really find these things
Yeah.
because that was the crux of my, you know, coming in last
Right.
year. That was why
Right.
I really got frustrated. And you know, I'm kind of smart.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I
I've been-
really did have a hard time with that.
Absolutely.
I haven't been on in a while since it's changed because my son's at the Career Center, so I hop back on and I'm like, all right, what do I, and I'm
Yeah,
scrolling
well,
down.
the entire district's
It-
website did change, right?
It was hard.
So it definitely has shifted in the navigation, but thank you so much for the feedback. So what we
Yeah.
can, you know, we can even, we're part of academics, so it would make sense to leave it there, but maybe get a quick button so that we're on
Yes.
that. When you get to
Yeah.
Worthington, here we are. We could even put like under the resources and just
That'd be
make it,
useful.
navigate it to various ways.
Yeah, because it is good. I mean, it's not. This
Right.
is not a.
No,
you
no,
know, it is
absolutely.
really, you know, legible and easy to get to on certain things. But that was one of the.
Okay,
Yeah.
for sure.
And under that homepage, there is the directory where you can just choose location, and you can choose different area as well. So if you're not exactly sure, it can help you with that. But yeah, I think we'll talk more about that because I think having
Okay.
access to how to find those people would be very helpful. So yeah, I mean, my brain is going because this is great to have feedback because I want to make this. I want to be able to have your answers, your questions answered as much as you can initially, and then you come only when you haven't been able to find it yourself initially. So, all about independence and being able to navigate on your own initially. So, and when you look at related supplemental services, I'm already thinking. So when you click on that here, it gives you a breakdown of the different categories. And so I think I'm going to go ahead and answer the question I think you'd already asked is can we add something here that would maybe give you
The
contact
staff
information for the
Yeah.
staff. It's already like that's already a mental note that we were
Yay.
already talking about. So,
Yeah.
and so mental health services, although it's not just special education, we do have a description of the mental health services. I'll say that we've added this support more and more over the last couple of years, and it's noticeable how well, how much it's helping. I think obviously it's always going to be a need. I think, but the staff and their involvement in the building has been noticeable. And again, I think that for all of them, it's all going to apply where we can have something that's easily for them to go click on and know who to contact within that area. So these give descriptions as well of the different related services. Moving down to transition services, this is an area that we're going to be adding to. A lot of times the dates and the information obviously is updated throughout the year. So new information will be coming, and we're going to be sending out a newsletter to parents within probably the end of the week that'll have some of these buttons hyperlinked as well. Because as the year progresses and some of the restrictions with COVID and change, the resource fairs and the college visits and everything will be look a little bit different than they have the last couple of years because normally we take visits to Columbus State, OSU Newark, and COTC. There's a presentation of college disability services that we've attended down at Ohio State with Otterbein, Ohio State, and Columbus State. Those haven't been able to happen the last couple of years, so hoping a lot of that is going to return. And so definitely, if you have a student that's 8th grade or older, to be going to this spot on the site and getting information. So you can see our names are listed here, so that's exactly kind of what we'll do with the other ones. So we're in one spot. So transition is a big area, and I could talk about it for hours. And I know it's a passion for all of us because we're excited to be able to have students be able to go through and have different opportunities throughout high school and after high school. So there is a lot of information in this area. Courses and training we're going to be adding to this soon. But this does give a few breakdowns of some of the things that we do within the school. So the job coaches and the job training consultant and some of our other support staff are involved with programs like the Enclave and internship that are in the schools, and then some students. I know we have parents here that have students who go to DACC, a lot of programs available there, and then we have students that also can go and they do what's called a social grad, where they don't necessarily leave us, but they graduate from their academic classes and move on to a campus-based program or a program that's off-site. So there are a lot of different opportunities within Worthington schools. You'll see the information for Delaware Career Center. And I'll show you a document here in a little bit that talks about the applications that are opening here in about the next month at the ACC for sophomores or juniors to get into programs, and those deadlines do start coming in the January time frame for those different programs. So January is always an early time where we're still mid-year, but we're thinking scheduling for next year, we're thinking applications and deadlines for the following year. So it's always good to start thinking about those and having those discussions early. Even one of the programs that we have that we've partnered with Worthington Industries, those applications and the interview process starts in November as well. So this is the time of year to start thinking about next year as far as what the plan is. Resources in research fairs and college visits. This is going to be eventually will be updated when there's new information and some resource fairs. I believe this is a resource guide that's old. So last year they did everything that was online. It was a vendor virtual event. I think this is an old link as well. But it gives some of the area schools and their transition programs and then some of the vendors that are involved. So we'll update that when we have new information for the job fairs or the resource fairs. I don't have any new information on when the date is yet, but when we do, we'll post it on here.
When you say you'll let us know, what information is sent out? I mean, is there now an address listing of those of us with students having IEPs that go out? 'Cause that's something I always wanted. And
It's,
I never.
we are creating a newsletter. Actually, we would hope to get it out. We'll probably have it. We should have it out within the week. We're waiting to see if we can get some of these dates. They will come to your email. So the email address that is in IC is where they would be sent. So did you receive parent mentor letters, newsletters and stuff last year?
And yeah,
From Kristen
previously I had-
Klopfer, so
yeah.
it's that same,
Okay.
typically we would navigate our information with the parent mentor, we work collaboratively with her. So it's that same list that we get from our Infinite Campus, in terms of pulling.
Because I didn't know being at DACC,
Full-time.
how is
but-
information coming? Am I missing things?
Yeah,
or-
if you're enrolled in the district, which you would be,
Yeah.
just attending there full-time, you would still receive that through.
Because he's grandfathered with Thomas, though the district is now through Kilbourne, and there was a lot of conflict.
Yeah,
at the
this one
beginning.
doesn't go per building, it's like our district
Okay.
list, so you would be good on that.
Okay, moving down with the transition programs. This starts to lay out and discuss some of the different options after high school. So like I talked about a little bit earlier with the social grad, you can move on and still be involved and still be enrolled with Worthington schools, but involved in a program. So campus-based transition programs. If you go to this link, this will give you a little bit of a side-by-side of some of the programs that we have to offer, and there's resource links there with deadlines. There's a lot on this because it's a side-by-side comparison of the programs. So the best way to start with this is to start with your IS and have discussions about the transition section and what we want to do after high school, and then start to dig a little bit deeper. This was developed initially to be able to give someone a side-by-side comparison because they have a senior that's in high school looking to move on to a program after high school. So this is a lot of information, but that's a good thing because it has the application deadlines. It has some of the different details as far as what that'll look like from a student lens, how often they're there, Monday through Friday, and what times and everything, because the details start to get very important when you're looking at being done with the school and moving on to a program that's going to be able to help you with independent living skills.
So, students under IDA on an IEP are eligible to stay in school until the semester after when they turn 22. So if they turn 22 in October, then they can end the semester. A lot of these programs are for our students who have met their graduation requirements, so all the math, science, English, but they may still have transition goals, life skills goals, social goals that they're continuing to work on, and they've kind of maxed out what's available at Kilbourne and Thomas in terms of theirs. Sometimes even they'll do 4 years at Kilbourne or Thomas and then go to DAC for 2 years. That's always an option too. Or those are some specific programs that we've worked with that give different opportunities for students with different needs. Depending on what it is they need to continue working on, they will stay through. And for our students, a lot of our students in our daily living skills with multiple disabilities, they will stay through the public school till the age of 22 and then go straight into adult services and programming that way. So it helps with that transition for that particular group of students.
Okay, moving down to the parent mentor. This will be updated as we just hired the new parent mentor. So this section will look very different coming
She's
soon.
on here. There she is.
Yeah, her bio is up here. So Colleen, she's got like the most professional headshot of everybody, I think, coming from a dance studio,
So
dance background.
Her children attend Sutter Park in Liberty.
What's her name?
Right here, sorry, right here.
Oh, there it is. Sorry.
That's all right.
So we'll have her in our principals meetings, our building visit meetings, any other evening meetings. We'll start getting her. She officially joins us. I think it's tomorrow, actually.
Yeah.
She'll be
So
in with
the
us.
parent mentor newsletter is from May. This will be updated when she has a chance to go through it. We already have one that's from the special ed newsletter side. So she might add to that and then post that here or there as well.
I have a silly question. How do we get on those newsletters?
So it's, did you receive them from her last year? Like, she sent them out through that list feed, so we'll be sending one out through that list feed next week. It'll also be posted on here. So if you see it posted on here and you haven't received an email for it, then, contact one of us and let us know. Were you at Sutter, right?
Sorry,
Last year, so you should have received them last year.
Okay.
It's hard for us to know if every single, we pull it out of the system and hope that it gets everyone. So if you see it on here.
If you see this, check it off and send
Yeah,
it.
if you see that there's an updated newsletter on there and you didn't receive it, let one of us know and we'll certainly. We also give them, like this announcement was we asked the building principals to put it in their weekly, newsletters. The IAS can, we'll shoot them to them and ask them to send them home to try to get them out there as much as we can.
Do you all have like a Facebook group for parents for special ed or anything? Like a private group that the parent mentor could like run? I feel like that would be a resource where you can post this information.
Right.
It's easier for people to find.
Yeah, so I don't think the parent mentor hasn't had her own Facebook group, but she has run just her, her newsletters and stuff through here. But we haven't had a specific Facebook group.
Yeah, I mean, just similarly like how we, our teachers
In the
in our
social-
classrooms
yeah.
use, their own private channels to communicate with parents. I feel like that would be helpful in this situation, especially
Okay.
for somebody like me who has kind of zero knowledge of any of this.
Did
It's
you
like-
just move to the district?
No, we've been in the district, but my youngest is
Okay.
in a different
We have
program.
one called ABCs and IEPs.
I was gonna say,
for-
ABCs,
And IEPs for parents that I can show you the.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, there are a couple of community-based ones.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it sounds like not a school or a.
Yeah. Right.
School system.
We'll talk with Colleen and see.
Yeah.
Maybe we can.
Good idea.
yeah,
Put
our
that road,
our
thank you.
preschool's an intervention preschool, and we have a Facebook page that
Mhm.
communicate with families, and it works really well.
Great, thank you.
And moving down, resource and links. So there's a little bit of information about adaptive sports and some links to assistive technology that will direct adaptive sports. So this does just give you some links, Worthington Special Olympics, some of the different programs that are available for adaptive sports. Assistive technology. It's going to give you just a few links to be able to link to here related to technology needs. So I think it may add Joe to that at some point.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
And then finally, resources and links, special education acronyms. So when you start to get a lot of those acronyms thrown at you, this does give you a little bit of a resource page to be able to look through and see those different acronyms, because there are a lot. I feel like there's a new one to me every year, even when something's brought up, and they change as well. So, and then finally, Center Park Preschool has its own link. It gives you a little bit of information about Center Park, and it's linked to their preschool website. So each high school does have their own specific site within the school site. So maybe that should have been something I mentioned initially. Again, one of those things that you kind of just take for granted when you know. But at the very top of the page, when it says our schools, you click here and you can go to the individual page for the school as well. So a lot of the questions that are school specific, starting at that school page, would probably be a good start, because this is the district homepage. So.
Jake, I had a quick question about transition services.
Yes.
Is somewhere on those links, is there like a basic explanation of, if you are going on to higher education, what you're entitled to in an academic setting? Is there something like that out there?
You mean like accommodations in college?
Yeah, like you can take your 504 with you, or
Right. So
I know all the
disability services links to the different colleges. I know that information is covered, like at the resource fairs and visits, but that, I don't know that we have like just a fact sheet on that. Might be a good.
That would be good, because I'm in that position
Like
right
a
now,
fact
and my
sheet
head's
of-
swimming of.
Yeah, I have that sheet already,
Oh,
so we just need to
awesome.
put it on the site. So
Okay.
yes.
And
Well,
that's-
page 504 is all the way at the bottom though.
Yeah.
Sorry, you know.
Under center.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we
You have to
talked
read and write
about,
Bookshare over to the right.
about,
So it's not, I know you can't necessarily.
So I believe 504 is also here. It's not.
but we could put it there as well. So we talked about 504 being under special ed or under academics. It's a regular ed initiative, obviously. It is for, through the Disabilities Act. So obviously there has to be a disability. If the child doesn't qualify, rise to the level of IDEA, then they have 504 plans. Somewhat similar in terms of evaluation and then plans. Plans are typically more accommodations rather than actual services, but there is some additional guidance that's a little different, obviously, from IDEA. So we will definitely put a link under the other as well. And I think, yeah, it's just the link to the U.S. Department and then just a general statement about them, about 504 plans.
Because I mean, we update them every year, just like an IEP.
Yeah, so evaluations, qualifications are every 3 years, just like an ETR. It's the same, it's a 504 evaluation, and then it's a plan, a 504 plan that's completed. And there's usually on the front page, there's information just in terms of what accommodations are there. And then the second page of the 504 is accommodations for state and district testing. And so those always have to align. And that might be something we can do a presentation one night on 504s. Just because it is kind of a part of, it's not really a part of special ed, but it oftentimes gets linked. And we have oversight in our district, so we monitor the paperwork and make sure that things stay in compliance and all of that with those plans.
There are times where mine had opposition, which would have kind of fallen into 504,
Right.
but he already had the IEP, so
Right.
kind of had to address both sides.
Right. And sometimes families graduating think that they need to take their IEP and make it into a 504 plan, because colleges provide through the Office of Disability Rights, they provide accommodations, but not really services per that. But you can actually take an IEP. That's just the area that they look at, right? So under accommodations on Section 7, that's what that Disability Services Office is going to ask you for. And then somewhat similar, they can consider those. They're not under the same obligation in terms of all of those that we are clearly that we provide at the high school level, but they certainly, and some schools are better at working with students with those plans versus others.
And then the last two links I've mentioned earlier when I was first introducing myself. So Read and Write for Google Chrome and Bookshare are two links, and these are linked on the very front of the district homepage as well. Honestly, I think you can link these all different kinds of places, because Read and Write is a tool that's offered and available to any student at all ages in Worthington schools. And if you click on that link, it's going to take you to a Google Drive that gives you a little bit of a rundown of some of the training videos, how to download it if you want to download it to your own computer. But to give you a brief summary of what that is it's a Chrome extension, and a Chrome extension is when you use the Chrome browser, and we use this specifically because we have Chromebooks, and this allows the students to be able to access these on Chromebooks because it doesn't have to be downloaded to a computer. It's on the Chrome browser linked to their student account. So this is Beth's computer, but Beth has these Chrome extensions connected to her account. So you see the puzzle piece right here, the purple puzzle piece. Every student, while they're using their school account, whether it's a school-issued Chromebook or it's a computer at home, as long as they're using their school account, this will pop up and they'll have access to it. And what it does, let's see, Beth, have you used it?
No.
Okay. Well, I didn't know it's gonna.
Probably not on this computer.
That's all right. So it's going to make you accept permissions. This is what your student would need to do if they've never used it before. They would just asking for permissions to connect with their Google Drive. And I could spend hours talking about this, so I'm not going to go too deep into it. Now we have all access to Beth's Google Drive. But it's a toolbar, and again, I won't get too deep into this, but if you want more information about this, you can email me afterwards, and I'd be happy to go into this in more detail. You'd probably hang up the phone on me eventually. So these are different tools that you can use while you're using websites or Google Docs. So there's a text-to-speech feature, there's a speech-to-text, there's digital highlighting tools. So if you were reading an article online and wanted to highlight important details, you could use the digital highlighter and then collect those highlights into a Google Doc. So
I'm like, where was this?
this would have been amazing when I was in college because I had handwrite a lot of things. So there's a lot of features within here. This is a screen mask, so you can minimize the screen. So if the screen's too busy or it's hard on your eyes and you use screen mask, it's going to have a little window. You can do that. There's a translate built in, and there's some vocab tools as well. Built-in dictionary, picture dictionary. So a lot of different tools to be able for students to use. I have students that have used this at the high school level. They go on in Ohio State, gives this to all their students as well if they request it. And I've had students come back and said I wouldn't have been able to make it my first couple years in college if I hadn't had access to that tool and known how to use it. So
When students are introduced to this, are they shown or taught, or how do they learn how to use this?
So ISs have definitely been trained on the tool and can use it in their classroom. And it just kind of depends because it's going to be more applicable to some students more than others, so they can't necessarily do classroom activities specific to this.
Right.
But I have gone into regular classrooms as well through my role in assistant tech to do this. But again, if you start looking at it and ask your student at home if they've used this or not, and then they're not sure, I'd be happy to run you through and get them started. And most students I found, like when I go to a 4th and 5th grade class and I show them, I have to pump the brakes because they start listening and they have the text-to-speech going and it's reading it out loud to them, and then I had to slow them down a little bit and make sure that they kind of have a good understanding. They're pretty resourceful. They figure it out pretty quick. So
What's under their training videos attached here? Under that link right there.
So yep. So
there's,
each training video.
the YouTube guides.
Yep. There's a guide for a student on YouTube. So
Okay.
great resource to use for all
Well,
students.
mine was always resistant. He's still resistant to any type
Yeah.
of accommodation.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and I tell this to students. I mean, I would love to show it to you, and I wouldn't be showing it to you if I didn't think it was going to be helpful. I would have loved to have had this when I was in high school or college because it would have made things a lot easier. Even even if you don't struggle with reading, or you can focus real well and take good notes, there are tools within that tool that can make things easier and allow your brain to be able to focus on the things you need to focus on. So, okay, let's go back. And then Bookshare is the final one. This is available only to students on IEPs and 504. So this is not available to all students in the district, but this is a nationwide tool that students have access to, and in layman's terms and quick terms, that it is a resource that allows you to have books in digital form. So if you have a hard copy of a book and you want it to be a digital form, so you'd be able to use text-to-speech or some of the highlighter tools that I just talked about, this would give your student access to a book online.
They have to have a print, right?
What's that?
They have to have like a reading.
They have to have
like,
an IEP or
right.
504, some type of print disability.
Print disability.
And if your student doesn't have access to Bookshare and would like access, contact the intervention specialist, and I can help them through that process. Because what you can do is, once we have an account created, which a lot of students already do, and all ISs already have accounts created, they can create an individual account. So initially, teachers, because this is federally regulated, and they force publishers to provide digital copies. In exchange, you have to have an agreement where you're only going to use it for people that need it. Otherwise, they'd just be giving books away for free, essentially. So teachers have to regulate it first and choose what books you have access to. And then if you want an individual membership, that's possible. So you can add books. You would just have to set up an individual account and fill out some information to agree to the terms and make sure that you're going to only use it in proper ways. So there is a way for you to be able to kind of control it on your end. There's just a couple steps with that. So again, start with intervention specialists, and we can add to that as well. And again, you're going to have my contact information after you leave here. If you have questions, please reach out, and I can share more about that specific resource.
Does that go up, through the high school level even? Or just
Yes. It's free for any student in the United States with any type of disability related to reading, or if they have a 504 IEP. I believe that once they're done being a student and they're an adult, it's $1 per week when you're an adult. So it still costs a little bit, but it's, $1 per week
So
is
they
pretty
go
good.
off to
And it
college,
gives you
get the
access
book,
to,
they could-
if they don't have the book, then you can request that they make it a digital copy, and then it'll happen in a couple weeks. But they have hundreds of thousands of books that are available, even textbooks in some cases.
So that Greenly will get them started, right? Like if they want their own account at home,
Yeah,
so
you
that
can start at
can
home.
add to
You
in
can start at
addition to
home.
textbooks.
But I would encourage, if you'd like to have them use it in the classroom and it hasn't happened already, start with your intervention specialist or your school counselor with a 504, and have them get it started. Because it makes me happy when someone emails me and asks me if they can get a student set up, because that's what it's there for. So.
If I have a child outside of the district but on an IEP through Worthington, would she have access to it through Worthington, or would I have to reach out to her school?
Either, depending on the school.
Okay.
You don't have to give me any specific details now, but you can feel free to shoot me an email, because I have set up outside providers with a student account.
Okay.
So, any other questions about the website? Really appreciate the feedback and open to it. So if you feel if there's little changes we can make, we'll make them, and if we can't, we're not going to make them, we'll give you at least a reason why it is the way it is. But definitely, we want to make it as seamless as possible and user friendly. So feedback is definitely welcome. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jake.